Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Canadian Immigrant Virtual Fair presented by BMO in association with Public Mobile. We're thrilled to have you all join us, and we hope you're enjoying the fair so far. Welcome to our closing panel discussion on the road to success is paved with soft skills. We've brought together experts from different fields to share their experiences and views on the importance of soft skills in finding career success. So complementing your technical or hard skills with soft skills to ensure that you're able to maximize your potential. So what are soft skills? We'll hear more during the session, but personal attributes you will have to build on, including communication skills, teamwork, listening skills, time management, and a number of other skills. So during this discussion, we will ask questions relevant to our speakers' industries, followed by time to ask questions. So we'll open the floor to questions from our viewers. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat window or in the Q&A. We will be getting to your questions, as many as possible, towards the end of the presentation. You can also email us at info@canadianimmigrant.ca. Please note that this session is being recorded and will be posted online on our website. So welcome to our fabulous speakers. Before we get started, we would like to show you a short video, a short 10-second video from our associate sponsor, Public Mobile. Please enjoy. And my colleague, Laura Jackman here will be playing the video. And I'm also joined by my colleagues, Sanjay Agnihotri and Ricky Bajaj. And I'm Ramya Ramanathan, the editor of Canadian Immigrant. Laura, please go ahead.
Matt and Megan felt stuck with their phone company, but since switching to Public Mobile, where there's no commitments, no contracts, and no hidden fees, they're free to feel the love again.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. So let's get started. Our first speaker today is Adwoa Buahene. Sorry, Adwoa, will you please say your name?
Adwoa Buahene, yes.
Buahene, okay. Adwoa has spent the last 20 years in leadership positions focusing on organizational and departmental strategy, as well as revenue generation. She is the CEO of TRIEC, the Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council, and a Vice President Donor and Community Partnerships at Habitat for Humanity, GTA. So welcome, Adwoa. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today. So I will start off with the first question. What are common challenges that you see with soft skills that immigrants and newcomers face on their settlement journey? And how can they best deal with them? This is a packed question. Your thoughts, please.
Well, I'd like to start by saying thank you very much for the invitation to speak with the panelists and your audience today. It's my pleasure to be here. And I also want to acknowledge a few things. I think there's a misnomer, I know there's a misnomer in the Canadian labor market about the notion of immigrants needing soft skills or not having soft skills. And I just want to table it that is a misnomer and it's an error. Every person, I would suggest, or every immigrant has soft skills. They have the ability to work if they are experienced and have been in the workplace. They clearly were successful in working with others, successful in communicating, successful in listening. The key issue is here in Canada is that we have this systemic sort of barrier as it relates to how those skills are interpreted. And so that's really the crux of it. And at TRIEC, we work a lot with employers as well to help them understand these barriers that are oftentimes unintentionally in place, that are unconscious bias that lead then employers or hiring managers or recruiters to say that this particular candidate or this immigrant candidate doesn't have quite the right soft skills. So I just wanted to table that because I think it must be very, very frustrating. I know it is very frustrating when I would suggest that newcomers and immigrants hear those kinds of comments. So in relation to, the fact remains, and we have to be transparent and realistic, the fact remains that this is a perception that persists despite, a lot of the work that we are doing at TRIEC. It is a perception that still exists, and we know perception turns into reality in the sense of having challenges then in being hired into the GTA. I mean, we represent the GTA, but the Canadian labor market. So what can immigrants and newcomers do? I think recognizing the reality of the situation and that it's not a great thing is saying, okay, how do I learn how to interpret these Canadianisms? And I would suggest that one of the ways, especially in this time when we are all virtual, so that's another acknowledgement I think that we need to make, right? That networking and doing all of this in this pandemic and virtual environment makes it 2 times or perhaps 3 times as hard. That's, my stat, not something we've researched. Maybe makes it 100 times harder, frankly, is one of the very practical things I would say is, look into LinkedIn. So we all know that the whole basis of LinkedIn was to be a professional networking tool. And one has to not relegate shyness sort of to the side, because one might think, oh, I can't contact that person. I don't know them. Well, the way in which you're going to build that networking channel is to reach out to folks within your, who have the same role or commensurate roles or in your industry, in your sector, and just reach out and say, may I have 20 minutes of your time for an information session? So that is one of the things that I would really recommend. And also to, in order to practice and to learn, what are those things that I need to understand? So what does teamwork mean? And ask those folks also, what does teamwork mean in the Canadian context? What should I do in a meeting, in a hiring meeting, or what shouldn't I do? What kind of questions should I be asking? We know that Canadian employers expect you also to ask questions and not just receive those questions and answer them. So I think that you, as you're practicing and trying to understand what this Canadian context is, a mechanism by which you could do that is through LinkedIn. And it's a numbers game, folks. Don't be disappointed if 5-10 people don't get back to you. Keep on going until you can connect with professionals and colleagues who know how to help you.
Great, thank you. And if I may add, when you send the invite, please add a little message saying, this is how I met you, or this is why I'm writing to you.
Or I haven't met you, frankly, right? Yeah. Because a lot of the LinkedIn will be, I haven't met you, but I'm I'm new to Canada. And I would say the majority of people out there, and certainly I get messages as well, and my colleagues do, the majority of people are really open to having a very, succinct, let's say 20-minute conversation with you.
This is true. Thank you for that great advice. Our next speaker is Sam Mode. Sam is the co-founder and CEO of Freshworks Studio. Welcome, Sam. He is a top 25 Canadian Immigrant Award winner. A little about Freshworks Studio. It's a full life cycle design and agile development company with offices in Victoria, Vancouver, and Seattle. In addition to being the 2018 top 25 Canadian Immigrant Award winner, Sam is also was named the Entrepreneur of the Year in 2018. So welcome, Sam. My first question to you is, can you speak a little about the challenges and frustrations you faced as an entrepreneur and how you dealt with them? So just a couple of challenges and frustrations.
That sounds good. First of all, hello, everyone. I think everyone who has joined this conversation, I think should give a pat on your back. When I came here in 2013, I would join every conversation and try to see and seek value from those conversations. So I think everyone who has joined has done a good job already. From an entrepreneurship point of view, as an immigrant, I think there are definitely challenges, and not to say you cannot overcome them, but the challenges start from day one when you land in a new country. So we can. I'm not going to talk about all the good things about Canada, because we're all here. We already know why we are here. So as an immigrant, you will definitely face some challenges, and let's just face it head on. There will be challenges around communication. There will be challenges around sometimes accent, and especially if we have big names and people have difficulty pronouncing them, or we have difficulty pronouncing their names, and it's difficulty around just having back and forth communication. So I think these are all challenges that you should just embrace, that, this is just going to happen. And it's nothing to be shy of. It's nothing to be worried about. It's just natural for that to happen. And every Canadian that I've met with hasn't ever brought up the fact that, hey, like your accent is different or I cannot understand you. It's more coming from the fact that they understand it. And it's just a matter of time when you can overcome it. But as an entrepreneur, those challenges sort of doubles, because as an entrepreneur, you're trying to raise money, you're trying to get your customers excited about your idea, you're trying to sell something, you're trying to hire a team. And if you don't have the cultural understanding, if you're not able to really express your ideas and thoughts in the context of raising money, in the context where the people will understand it, those are definitely challenges. And then as a newcomer, you're really not, you don't have a network here. From wherever you come from, you have a bit of a network. People who trust you, know you, and maybe they're willing to bet on you. But if you come to a new country, you don't have a history, you don't have a legacy, you don't have people who can just trust you. So you have to build that trust over a period of time. And for an entrepreneur, you have to expedite that trust development through quick actions, quick wins, really, really personal level, not ever trying to sell anything, not ever try to be forceful on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a job, just don't be, your first message should never be, hey, I'm looking for a job, or hey, do you have a job for me? That just doesn't go very well. But as we sort of understood the culture and we got the swing of things, we started to really show what we are capable of, and that's how we started to build trust. And that's how we are right now Freshwork Studio, and we are 81 employees, and it just feels like yesterday when I landed in Victoria. So that's my story.
Congratulations, Sam. That's a great story. And I would just add to say that patience, right? No matter what happens, patience with the people and patience with whatever is unraveling. So I'd like to welcome our next speaker, Connel Valentine, to our panel. Connel is a job search coach and helps newcomers to Canada find the right jobs that fit their experience and qualifications by helping them follow a step-by-step job search approach that is modernized for Canada's highly competitive job market. So welcome, Connel. It's great to have you here. In addition to hard skills, what soft skills can improve chances for success in landing a new job or in career progression?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So first of all, thanks a lot for having me. In terms of soft skills that can get you a job, what I always recommend my students to do is to first go through a process of understanding what soft skills are important. There's a whole bunch of them out there, right? Everything from communication skills to teamwork to leadership. And everyone has got a specific job that they're looking out for. So what I recommend as a first step for everyone to do is to select that one target job title that they want to go after. A lot of folks think that, well, if I cast a large net and I try to go for as many job titles as I can, I stand a better chance. But in fact, out here in Canada's culture, the opposite is true. Canada is a land of specialists. So once you've highlighted that specific target job title that you want to go after, you'd want to do the research of which soft skills are actually needed. And as you mentioned, I'm always looking for the modern ways of doing this. So for the folks out here, a fantastic tool that you need to have by your side is a tool called JobScan, and you can Google for it. So what you can do right now, like after this event, is an exercise that you can do is go onto your job board and look for that target job title. Take about 5 to 7 job descriptions and copy paste all of that into JobScan, and you click a button, and it gives you all the soft skills that are needed for the job that you're looking for. So this way, you know which are the soft skills that are important. And then the exercise you want to do after that is, now that you know which skills are needed, is to go into self-reflection mode. A lot of the times I find people are it's very easy for people to say, I've got this soft skill, I'm detail oriented, or I've got great communication skills. Recruiters are tired of seeing those words over and over again in resumes without context. So I think the activity that you need to do is then, now that you have the list of soft skills, take the top 10 and sit and think and reflect on yourself and ask yourself, how do I do this soft skill better than most folks? Like, how is this soft skill my strength? So if you have communication skills, which undoubtedly is going to be there in the top 10, ask yourself, why do you feel you're a good communicator? Right? And ask yourself that question. And if you have a tough time sort of coaching yourself, use resources that you have available to you, folks that you have assisting you on your journey with, all the resources that you have available, have them ask you the question. And you'll find then that exercise starts to bring out context that you can use in your resume, in your LinkedIn profile, and certainly in your job interview as well.
Great, thank you so much for that. Our next panelist is Catherine Steele. Catherine is known as the great clear communicator and is a speaker, coach, and consultant who trains corporate teams and individuals on clear speaking skills and pronunciation techniques necessary to be competitive in today's global marketplace. So Catherine, thank you for joining us. You're a good friend to Canadian Immigrants, so it's great to have you here. So Catherine has chosen to make a presentation, and she will be talking about about communication skills with a special focus on teaching people how to be clear communicators, and also specifically about the importance of developing communication skills. So Catherine, if you have a PowerPoint, please go ahead and share it. And
right.
Yes, great. There we are.
Perfect. I'm just going to start here. And thank you so much for having me on the panel. It's always a pleasure to speak for Canadian Immigrant Magazine and to speak to all of you who are listening live today or who may be watching this as a recording. The things that people have said up to this point have been so valuable. If I had a pen, I'd be taking notes. I hope you are. Things are different when you arrive in another country. I've lived in a couple of other countries myself and tried to find a place for myself as a professional. It's not always easy to do, and it's not always something that looks like what would be professional in your first country, your first culture. So I'm going to explore that a little bit. My interest, of course, is sound. And I know that a lot of times people get mixed up about what the person is saying if they can't hear them. And we think about that at that level where maybe there's a misunderstanding in the word, or there's a sentence that doesn't sound right, or someone's unaware of the grammar that would be used in a situation. That's one level. But what I find for people at the professional level, which is yourselves, you're coming in to take supervisory roles, management roles, CEO, you're going to start businesses. Those roles require an even finer degree of understanding of language on the tone, intonation level. And I'm going to explore that a little bit with you. I've had the pleasure of working with over 7,500 clients. So sometimes people say, do you know someone from my language? Maybe not. I do have a very good ear for this, and that's what's made me a good communicator in the past. Let's carry on with this presentation. So I'm known internationally as a pronunciation coach, a soft skills trainer, and a diversity strategist. And these are things that are helpful to look for. The people in the room today are also working with you on this. If we have a clear understanding of what someone is saying, of what they've got to offer in a resume, of what they've got to offer at work, then we have more diversity, and that is going to build a much stronger Canada. So we're happy to have you come. We're happy to see the skills that you're bringing. And what we're looking for is a way for all of those things to merge and blend and work together. For some reason, this is not moving ahead. I am frozen and I'm not sure why. There we go. So one of the problems, and I've mentioned this in a previous presentation, is that in Canada, correcting another adult is taboo. It's almost impossible. It's one of the strongest taboos. And unfortunately, that leaves immigrants with no answers to important questions about culture. So how do we learn about what's expected of professionals in Canada when we come from another part of the world? There is an exception to the rule of taboo correction of adults. This is a good thing. It's called mentors. I want you to think about this very seriously. It has been mentioned briefly, and each of the people on the panel are mentors in their own right. Sometimes people think, yeah, but they're on the panel, they're a big deal, I can't reach out to them. Please do. I'm going to post my information in the chat. Reach out to us. We are mentors that you should be looking to, but more importantly, you should be looking to people in your industry. And if you haven't got that wonderful, strong job in your field yet, if you're still looking for that and you've got a survival job at the moment or nothing yet, I want you to look to your future you. I want you to think about who would be a great mentor to get you into the position that you want. So how do we decide what to ask a mentor? There's a really great book. It has been around for a while. I'm sure there are other great books out there. This one is called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. And it's got all the countries in the world and some ideas about how they would handle certain situations. You need to know that coming in at the supervisory level and beyond. However, although it's talking about cognitive styles and negotiation strategies and the basis for behavior, some really cool topics that you need to know, it doesn't go far enough. And what you will need to know is going to be the hard times conversations. All right. So I want you to think that when you're coming, you are replacing someone who is now a senior or almost a senior. They are the baby boomers. You've been asked to come because we have a lot of people retiring right now. And I am the very tail end of the baby boomers. And so let's think that 64, I think, was the end. That's when I was born. All this group is retiring. And when they retire with negotiation skills, tons of connections, an understanding of the process in the company from the bottom to the top. They have not met a problem that they haven't found a solution to or haven't found someone else who can solve it. And you're stepping, excuse me, into that role. So it might be a good idea to take a role in a company that you enjoy that has that position, but take a more junior role to start so that you can build your connections and you're more comfortable moving up into those difficult conversations, into the hiring and firing, into the, I'm sorry, but we're downgrading certain skills in the office and we have to let some people go as a result. So it's the world that we're living in right now, and it will be the position that you are seeking. So how is it done in Canada? The conversations that you want to have to be those conversations. Ask about firing conversations. Ask about what to do when the whole team is upset. These kinds of conversations are with those mentors. You have to have a fairly strong connection with that mentor to be able to go into that kind of detail. And I'm going to talk to you about some success stories. These are clients of mine. One client from Colombia is a project manager, very successful in what he's doing. And part of the reason he's so successful is when he arrived, he jumped into at least 4 Toastmasters group, maybe more. He was going to Toastmasters all the time and asking questions. And at the end, after we had worked together, he created his own Toastmasters group because there were things that he wanted to be able to do and talk about that weren't out there. So he created it for himself and he created it for others. Another woman that I worked with is now doing company webinars with a well-known grocery store in the Vancouver area that has several franchises. And she took her speaking to the next level. She kept pushing herself and pushing herself so that she could take on those roles. You're going to be mentoring yourself. So to have an understanding of the conversations with a mentor that are helpful will make you a good mentor. And in the role that you're going to be in, you will need to be mentoring new people coming into the organization. And the strength of being able to teach someone, as a teacher, I know this, deepens your own knowledge. The third one is professional and personal speaking opportunities. Take the opportunity when it arrives. Put your hand up. I have someone who works for Amazon here in Vancouver. His team was asked to give a presentation to Amazon in Seattle. The team said no. He put his hand up, and he is now connected and has video proof of his ability to speak and his knowledge. So you're in a webinar full of mentors. Put your questions and comments into the chat. Follow up with us following the event. I want to talk about funding. Is there funding? Number one, there are a lot of free things available. There are a lot of organizations that offer mentorship. Number two, you should be making phone calls to people on LinkedIn, as was mentioned. Get connected with people, ask them questions. Don't ask one person all of the questions. Spread it out a little bit, but start getting those difficult questions answered. We as Canadians expect professionals to build their careers and continue to develop. We consider it lifelong learning, and we pay for our training. The Government of Canada understands that soft skills are a problem, and they've put money toward this. Most of the provinces control funding for education, have government funding. So I'm going to ask you to look into this, and I'm going to ask you to approach your employer regarding funding for professional development that the company may have, or to ask them to apply on your behalf for the government funding. And if it doesn't happen, pay for your own training. You will meet wonderful people who are also working on their professional development, and they will be your best connections on LinkedIn. So here comes the government funding link. If you want to take a picture with your phone, now is the time. I'm also going to put it into the chat at the end of the presentation. And this is a link to stay connected to me. It's at tinyurl.com/immigrantfair. And this is my contact information. I'll put all of that into the chat, and I'm very happy to have questions.
Catherine, thank you so much. That was a great presentation, as always. So we'll go back to Sam for a second question. Can you speak more generally about your experience immigrating to Canada and what attributes served you well on your settlement journey?
Indeed. Great presentation, Catherine, by the way. You came prepared. That's exciting. So 2013, it was month of July, and it was a bright sunny day. That was the first time I landed. That was, in fact, my first international flight ever from India. And the place I landed was in Toronto. And the number one thing, as I was trying to get a sense of what is next for my career, I was coming here to pursue my MBA. I was looking forward to going to University of Victoria for the same. And then after that, I was really looking forward to getting a job. And the number one thing everyone recommended was networking. So now this networking is a phenomenon almost. It's something that haunts people and something that some people are just excited about. So there is nothing in between, right? And for me, it didn't come naturally because I was sort of an introvert in the beginning and didn't really know what is expected of you in networking. Like, how is it going to be perceived if I just go up to someone and just start talking? Like, is that am I just going too far with that? But that was the number one recommendation. So what I tried to do was, I had my tech background. So I started joining all the tech meetups and tech groups that were available. And those tech groups and meetups, they have so many networking sessions. And even now with COVID situation, they are all virtual. With those tech groups, I started meeting and connecting with interesting people. And I started talking about my experience. I never ever said I'm looking for a job. I was just there talking about my experience and talking about what I've done in the past. And naturally, people, either if they're interested in you, then they are curious and they're asking more questions. And those questions eventually led me to connect with other folks. Because if the first thing that you say is I'm looking for a job, then you're really cornering yourself into an area where people are not going to willing to be helping you a ton. But if you start from just your experiences and you're open-minded, and you want to see how the conversation flows. So not every conversation is going to be worth your time, but some conversations, some relationship that you develop will be long-term, and those long-term relationships will serve you really well. Like think 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, that kind of thing, and not just one day, 1 month. It takes months and years to develop strong relationships, especially if you're coming to a new country. And those relationships started to pay dividends. And through those relationships, I started to think that, hey, I'm actually not going to take a job. I'm actually going to start a company. And then when I started the company, they also helped me raise money. They also helped me connect with other folks and connect with other entrepreneurs. And now they're helping me hire people. Now they're helping me connecting with some of my clients. So it's the relationship that I developed 8 years ago, 7 years ago. That particular relationship has worked so well for me that I would not change anything about it. So I would say strategic networking and going in with an open mind was number one thing that I did.
Thank you so much. And I liked what you said about strategic networking and building those relationships, because Adwoa, I actually was a part of the TRIEC mentorship program. Catherine talked about the mentorship program as well. And I had a great mentor, Peter Kent, who was at that time, a journalist slash presenter slash, a journalist, basically a media personality. And we had a great relationship, but then, you don't keep it going, you don't build on it, you just lose your connection. At this point, I don't even have his email. I used to be friends on Facebook, but you just have to build these connections. All of you have really great points, but this was a long time ago. So Adwoa, back to you. Next question for you is, TRIEC does a lot of great work, like the mentorship program. Would you like to highlight some specific programs and initiatives that newcomers and immigrants can access to develop soft skills on their journey to success?
Sure, thanks. And Sam, I really enjoyed, what you just said about your own experience, and I'd like to echo, that it is a bit of a long game. And I would like to suggest to you that networking is painful. There's a stat out there that says 95% of people would rather die than do a presentation, right? Than to publicly speak. And I would say that probably it's 87.5% would rather not network, right? Would rather die than do networking. So it is really tough. And you have to, set goals and targets. Like even if you just say to yourself, I'm going to reach out to 5 people a day, or 5 a week. I'm going to join these meetup groups. I think those were all incredibly great tips. And then Ramya, you said if you don't keep it up, you're going to lose it, right? So that's the other piece about networking. It is, and I profess myself not always to be very good at these things either, right? So it is about being strategic and doing the long game. And so you mentioned our mentorship program, Ramya, and I really encourage those that are on, I was going to say the phone, which shows you how old I am, those of you who are online, some of you are internationally based, and some of you are already here in Canada, are permanent residents. So you are Canadian, right? So we have Canadian born and the rest of us who are all Canadian. And so really thinking about when you come to this country, and I'll share a story of a colleague of mine. He had over 10 years, I think maybe even 20 years, although he probably wouldn't want me to tell his age, of HR experience when he came to Canada. And he thought, like many of us do, and I think, Sam, you've told the story as well, that when I come, it's just going to be easy, right? I have a ton of experience. I'm very intelligent. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to find a job. And so he said it took him about 6 months before he accessed resources through what in the Greater Toronto area we call community partners, which are employment services agencies where there's no cost to you, where they do training and they do support you on various elements of resume writing, interview skills, soft skills learning. So he said it took him about 6 months before he accessed that service because he was too proud in some ways, right? He said, well, how hard can it be? I'm a very qualified individual. And so through that program, he too, I believe, went through our mentorship program. So, and my colleague Helen was going to post in the chat the link to our mentorship program, but I'll do that after I finish speaking. She said she can't connect to only to the panelists, not to everybody who's in the audience. So I'll post a couple of links as well. So access the community, these employment service agencies that are within wherever you live, Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, Montreal, and so on, all the way out to the East Coast, coast to coast to coast. And there they have job advice and job seeking advice and hiring advice. And then in the Greater Toronto area, once you sort of finish that program, the tail end is what we call this mentorship program that we have at TRIEC, where we match newcomers and immigrants with professionals in their industry and their sector. Because what we really want to do is we want to discourage underemployment, and we want to ensure that people do, where they can, find commensurate employment and very much in their field. So our mentors are really great about helping folks understand what we call the WIN model. And you can practice this WIN model through all of these activities that our fellow panelists have mentioned, whether it is meetup groups, individual people that you can speak to through LinkedIn, is the WIN model's workplace culture. So asking very specific questions, as we mentioned, what does teamwork mean? Helping to understand, do I really need to know about hockey at the start of every conversation? I would recommend that everyone needs to know who the great one is, Wayne Gretzky. I think that's the bare minimum of Canadian standard, Canadian board standard. But aside from that, no, maybe you don't need to know everything about hockey. But asking those workplace culture things, how do things work? Then industry knowledge. Understanding, I mean, Connel talked about we're a country of specialists. Understanding in your industry, what does that role mean, right? What does that job title mean? What are not only the soft skills, but the technical skills I need to have? And then networking is the third part of the WIN. So that dreaded networking word, it is the reality. So when you speak to somebody, say, is there somebody else that you can connect me with that I can continue the conversation? And last but not least, I do agree, Sam, also what you said, and I would underpin that when you're having these conversations, it's to say, I'm looking to learn and to grow and to inform myself, and not sort of start with, maybe it ends that way and the conversation goes that way, I'm looking for a job. I think that's likely evident by the fact that you've reached out. So it can be a bit off-putting if one starts with that, rather than saying, here's what I'm looking to learn, here's what I'm looking to build. And then people are saying, oh, okay, well, I can do that.
Thank you.
And I'll post those links in the chat, Ramya.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Very comprehensive response. And you know what? Just Google those things. It'll come up. Mentoring partnership. Try it. Also do that. So my next question, Connel. A number of newcomers end up in jobs they're overqualified for. How can they find jobs that are relevant to their skill sets? What key attributes, what key soft skills can help them progress in their career?
Right. So if someone has arrived in the country and has ended up, working in a survival job, their job search is not over, right? So the good news is that they actually do have a job right now, and they've already gotten into an organization. So that makes, networking inside the organization a little bit easier for that person because they're already in that role in that company. So once again, it goes back to that dreaded word of networking, right? And yes, but the mindset of networking is this: it's don't look at it as what holds people back from networking is a couple of things. Number one, they have this mindset where they think, I can't reach out to this person because they're too high up the organizational ladder, or they're too important, they won't give me the time of day. But while that may be true in other parts of the world in some way, culturally here in Canada, that doesn't exist. There's the technical term is the egalitarian sort of work culture, or the structure, versus an hierarchical structure that exists in the other parts of the world. Like in other parts of the world, there's a very hierarchical structure. If I need to speak to someone high up, I have to go through my boss, and then my boss has to go to their boss, and then they get to there. That's not necessarily true in Canada. Typically, culturally, it's egalitarian, meaning it's flat. Anybody can speak to anyone. And certainly as a newcomer to Canada myself, 5 years ago, that's one of the differences that I've noticed, is that management out here basically say, look, if you want to speak to me, you can come directly to me. Don't worry. You keep your boss in the loop. And the boss actually endorses that kind of thing. If you want to reach out, people generally have freedom to do that over here. So if you're an organization right now working a survival job, look at it as an opportunity to now start connecting with people in that organization. Don't feel intimidated by reaching out to the people. So let's say, for example, you wanted to get into HR, but for whatever reason you ended up in the call center. Fine, you're working at the call center. Spend some time, spend a couple of minutes, spend a couple of hours a day or the weekends finding out who are the people in HR, and start emailing them, start messaging them. But again, like everyone said, don't approach them in a way that sounds like you're just reaching out to them because you want a job. Okay, because people will very easily see that. As human beings, we all have a natural tendency to help people, right? We're helpful creatures. We all help each other out. The difference, though, is I take that a little bit step further, and I say, look, people want to help you out, but you have to get them to want to help you, right? That's the difference, and that's where you got to be. If you come up to someone and maybe they do actually, they really would want to give you a job if they could, but you come right out and say, hey, I want a job. They don't want to help you, right? But if you've offered value, if you've built that relationship over some time, if you've gone to their LinkedIn profile and found out, for example, they're into photography, and if you say, hey, I love Canon, I think here's an article that I found as to why that's such a great camera. I think I noticed in a picture that you've had it as well in your LinkedIn profile. Here's something you could use. Offer value, be creative in terms of how you can help someone. And after you've gone through that process, then you could ask the questions. A lot of folks have said, ask for that 20-minute conversation, ask for that informational interview. Put that ask forward after you're confident that that person has reached that level where they want to help you.
Great, thank you for that excellent points. The one thing I will add is do the networking. It's important, but make sure you're authentic and you have the energy. There are times when you can say, well, I have to contact three people this week, and you might be feeling tired. Your energies might be depleted. So just pick yourself up and get those energies in place and want to do what you're doing. Be authentic. Whatever you do, just be authentic. So I'm going to ask one final question to all of you. I don't know how much more time we have left, but in about a minute, given that we have COVID, can you talk about what you think are current opportunities? Well, challenges too, but given that we have just a minute, what would you think are the current opportunities to develop digital soft skills? Catherine, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Number one, we are now all presenters, and Adwoa was talking about how we don't love that, and it's the fear worse than death to be a presenter, but now there's nowhere to hide. So turn that around and say, you know what? I always thought I should take a Toastmasters course or a presentation course. Well, I'm in it now. So what can I do each day? Give yourself maybe time limits to be the one to ask a question, be the one to offer an idea, be the one to start a discussion. This is your opportunity to get some real training with feedback and questions and comments in the chat. There is a danger in terms of writing. Some people are unsure about their writing ability. This is going to be more of a problem because you have to type out more. And I don't know about you, but I can't see it. So I make more mistakes. So use that that idea that, well, Catherine's making mistakes in her grammar and her writing as well, just through not seeing it, but continue to work on the development of your language skills. And I would say that one of the big challenges is the connection over Wi-Fi, the connection over the phone. It's not great. And if you have an accent and the person is unfamiliar with your accent, don't worry if they're asking you to repeat and repeat and write it in the chat and spell it. That is our way of keeping that conversation going. It's polite to ask people for more information, more details. I'm going to say, though, that if you see a pattern, I want you to discover where Canadians are having trouble understanding you and take it seriously. People will only mention that there's a problem when there's a problem. Otherwise, the conversation runs along without interruption. So ask for details, keep a notebook, get training, and all of that will shorten the timeline and bolster your self-confidence. So good luck with everybody, and I look forward to comments and questions.
Thank you, Catherine. Adwoa, can I ask you the same question about digital soft skills and the current opportunities for digital soft skills?
Sure. I think joining all the groups that we've talked about, in particular, one that is also was put into the chat, we have professional immigrant networks that TRIEC supports. And so connecting through one of those networks, asking your peers, so they're either sometimes by culture, by ethnicity, these networks, and sometimes by profession, and sometimes both. So for example, we have the Filipino Accountant Network that's part of our PINS group. So connect with one of those and chat with your peers about their experience, learn from folks who have gone through it, and practice. And I think one of the big things is to ask for feedback as to your digital presence and your ability to read, right? I mean, it's a little bit easier now. It's when we have a phone call, you can only hear a voice, but you can't see body language. And from studies, 63% of a message is delivered through body language. So through video, we can learn a bit more. But it's really about practice, 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 because as Catherine said, you cannot hide anymore.
Thank you so much. Great point. Sam, do you have any thoughts?
Absolutely. So I think there hasn't been a better time for ramping up on your digital skills than now. And just a tip for folks who are, looking for a job, I would say reach out to the recruiter as opposed to the highest official in that company. If you reach out to a CEO, if you reach out to the CEO, if you reach out to a VP, the chances of you hearing back from them because they have so many things on their plate is very less, even if you have a very strong profile. So start reaching out to recruiters and then understand the company that you're applying at. So I'm running a tech company and we rely heavily on digital tools. Like from designing, we rely on Figma, InVision, Photoshop. For programming and coding, we have our modern stack that we use. So Vue, Node.js. For some of the other things, we use different programming languages and different frameworks. So if you have an interest in any of those, make sure you research the companies that you're interested in and start developing those digital skills. There are so many programs available for free around the world, and on YouTube. YouTube is your best friend. Learn those skills, and when you're reaching out to a recruiter, you can be a little bit more direct about what you're looking for, what you have learned, and the fact that you're a newcomer to Canada. And that's probably is a good starting point. That would be my thing.
Thank you. And Connel?
Yes, so we're in the world of remote work, as you know. So I think the biggest challenges in terms of soft skills is resourcefulness and resilience, I would say. And it's another important cultural difference to note of how things are different in Canada versus the rest of the world, where your relationship with your boss is such that you may be used to, boss, how do I do this? Tell me exactly what I need to do. Whereas out here, if you ask a Canadian boss that, the answer you're going to get is, I don't know. Why don't you tell me how to do it? Right? So you've got to be more resilient and more resourceful. And especially in the world of remote work, take advantage of the digital tools. Take the time to learn how to get to use them. Your manager isn't always going to appreciate the fact that you're always reaching out to them and asking how-to questions. And that's probably the biggest challenge. When you're new to a company, you want to ask a lot of those questions, right? So But use your manager as a last resort. Hopefully they've given you a great introduction to the team, so you can start to form those relationships with your team. But use your manager, I would say, as a compass, but not as a GPS, right? So figure out how to do things on your own, use the resources that you have available to you. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges you'd need to overcome. In terms of opportunity, the good news is that we're all more productive working from home. People aren't walking around the office with their 17th cup of coffee for the day, right? So they're connected to their computers. This is, again, another opportunity to easily connect with others in the organization, have those online meetings on Zoom or Team or whatever it is, especially if you find yourself in a position where you'd want to start to get back to the position that you'd want to get back on. And like I said earlier, that starts with connecting and having those conversations with the right people. And I'm going to steal Catherine's idea on promoting books, and I think this is a really good one over here. It's Understanding Canadian Work Culture by this person. So take a screenshot or take a note of it. I think it's a really good book to get. It's just 80 pages. It's not a lot, but I've certainly learned a lot from it. I've certainly nodded my head to a lot of it as well. So I think people are definitely going to find some value from it.
Great, thank you so much. That was a lot of great information and some great resources there. I think we might not have time for questions, unfortunately, but if either of you, Sam, Adwoa, Connel, Catherine, want to write something about this conversation on soft skills today and publish it on Canadian Immigrant, that would be a great resource for our audience. So feel free to share that. So thank you to all of you, our wonderful speakers, and for all your great insights. And thank you to our presenting sponsor, Bank of Montreal, our associate sponsor, Public Mobile, our gold sponsors, Canadian Association of Professional Immigration Consultants and Prevention Link, our silver sponsors, Multicultural Association of Fredericton and the Government of Nova Scotia, and to all our other exhibitors. So you might have 10 minutes left, and you can rejoin the fair and feel free to have your final chats with our exhibitors. We're open till 4, maybe a few minutes longer. And if you're chatting with somebody, just give them a few extra minutes to connect. So thank you to our wonderful speakers again, Adwoa, Sam, Connel, Catherine, and we look forward to staying connected.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye.